Welcome to the On the Line with Lobeline podcast, where we discuss the good, bad, ugly, and everything in between right here in Hollywood. From business to entertainment, sports, culture, lifestyle, and more, we're bringing you unfiltered and unapologetic opinions and insights from the millennial publicists and digital marketing experts in the field. So stay tuned and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Welcome back to the On the Line with Lobeline podcast. And today for the client spotlight, I have a very unique, very important guest. We are in the presence of greatness right now because I'm sitting with the producer, the film financier, the head of Patriot Pictures, which is the premier production company right here in the heart of Hollywood, Michael Mendelsohn.
Good to see you.
Good to see you
Miss
too.
Jamaica.
Oh my goodness. Of course you're going to put me on the spot like that.
And another one on the way, right? Your daughter? Yeah. You have a daughter?
My son.
A son?
Yeah. So he'll be the Mr. Jamaica and the Mr. World, and we'll give him like 20 years for that. But thank you so much for joining us. I very much appreciate your time. I know you're a very, very busy man. But I want to just dive right into it. You started out years ago. You graduated from UPenn, and then from there you went to work at Union Bank. And right now you are financing some of the biggest films in Hollywood. Talk to us a little bit about that and what brought you to the path that you're on right now.
Tim?
Yes.
Good to see you.
Oh, that's right. As your publicist, I'm going to talk for you, so you don't even have to be here. I'm here for you. Yes, Michael and I have. How long ago have we been together? A year now?
I thought it was 20.
Oh, good God. And as his publicist, his story is so unique. Michael, tell them really how it all began. It is a fascinating story, how you got involved in film and in financing film.
The first job I got in it was in the mailroom of a company called Bushkin, Copelson, Gaines and Wolf, which was Johnny Carson's law firm. And I started as the mail boy and the Xeroxer. I collected the coffee cups. And then eventually Johnny asked me to drive him to the studio, and we started a nice relationship where he would test his jokes. And unfortunately, my sense of humor wasn't finely developed at the time, so out of the 40 jokes that I would be pitched, I only kind of laughed at 2 or 3 of them.
Oh no. At least you were an honest audience.
And it turned out he kept requesting me to drive him for that reason, that I was honest. But he always had 3 that he liked, so we would joke that we'll test mine and test his and see which one gets the bigger laugh. And for somebody that was in high school, that was quite a good job.
I bet. There's not a lot of people in high school that can say that they're working with Johnny Carson.
Well, driving him.
Absolutely.
On a new learner's permit license.
Wow. Oh my
in a
goodness.
Chevy Chevelle Super Sport, which I ended up selling for $3,000 and is probably worth $123 right now.
Wow. It's your first lesson in financing right there.
There you go.
And so then how did you move into actually being involved in the entertainment industry? Because you had come up through being in the banking industry, correct?
No, I come out through that and then working for Copelson, who did Platoon and a couple other good movies. And then I worked a summer at Columbia Pictures in the business department under John Dolgen, who's a well-known executive who passed away, may rest in peace, recently. And then I started working in the mailroom of William Morris in New York, where I moved in with a gentleman named Ari Emanuel. We were roommates there for almost 2 years, and then I moved back to Los Angeles, and Ari moved eventually to Los Angeles.
And what would most people know Ari from?
Right now, he just took William Morris Endeavor public. I think he's also the lead character in the series Entourage. He's called Ari Gold, but
It's based on him.
It's loosely based on him.
Loosely.
But Ari is super charming and smart and tough. And so we lived together after that another 4 or 5 years, and I think the rest is history.
Wow.
And so, did you always have a love of entertainment? I mean, was that something that was instilled in you early on? Did you love movies, television? Or is this something that came later when you thought, well, there's money to be made here, or there are deals to be
I
cut?
never did it based on money, because
Okay.
I ended up going to the Wharton School, and one of my best friends and my current financier, Mark Rowan, is in charge of Apollo Global Management. He manages $500 billion. He's the smartest, most brilliant, and best friend I know. And so he is talented in that area. My whole thing has always been how to finance production and movies in a way that's profitable, prudent, and gets movies made that the normal studio would not make. And that includes everything from Reservoir Dogs to True Romance, Air Force One to Underworld, and Madness of King George, Nobody's Fool, My Life, True Romance. And these are all classic movies who now, the generation of your generation, those are old classics. But they weren't old classics when I was financing them.
So, what of the movies that you've done, what do you think is something that you're the most proud of the ones that you've been involved in when you look back on them?
Well, the one recent one that I'm proud of is How the Gringo Stole Christmas. It was made in 4.5 months just during the strike. We shot for a month before the strike. It's a Christmas movie, so we started in June, and we had to deliver by October. My team, the Patriot team, which includes Natalie, Grace, Caitlin, and Gabriella, had to work around the clock to deliver a movie which the studio said they won't pay us if it's not there by October 1st. And that was Grindstone, Lionsgate Grindstone. And so Stan and Barry, who run it, did a wonderful job with us. And Angel Garcia is the director.
Yeah.
George Lopez, Mariana Trevino, Val Kilmer's son, Jack Kilmer, and Emily Tosta. And I don't know how we did it, but we did it.
And you brought up a really good point when you said that, you wanted to work on and finance movies that won't typically get greenlit. What does that process look like? How do you recognize, this is a movie that I'm going to keep pushing for, even if the studios might shut it down?
Well, the studios have a profitability threshold. These days, you see a movie like Barbie do 1 billion worldwide, right? Or Star Wars movies do 1 billion worldwide. Or Fast and Furious, or Mission Impossible. So, these movies make so much money. Yes, they cost more, but they also move the bottom line of the company. Now, there are other movies that are either genre movies like horror or action or romantic comedies that cost less. And when they're profitable, when a $10 million movie is profitable, let's say it makes $20 million profit. Even though that sounds like a good profit to an independently financed company, and I hope we do that every time, to a major studio who makes $1 billion franchise, 20 million doesn't really move their needle.
Sure.
And then, there was a film, Reservoir Dogs, that Lawrence Bender and Quentin brought to me with Richard Gladstein. It was at Live Entertainment at the time, and they were going bankrupt. So I picked from 7 movies, Reservoir Dogs, and another one with Paul Schrader, Light Sleeper, that had Willem Dafoe in it. And we financed those 2. The other 5 movies didn't get financed.
Wow.
And so you have to kind of see where the filmmaker has a vision, where the writing is particularly fresh or witty or clever. And sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't. You know, we did a movie recently with Nick Cassavetes, who's one of my favorite directors. He did The Notebook, he's done John Q, he's done so many great movies, Alpha Dog. And so we did a movie with him that was a bit challenged because it's a true story, so you have to represent it correctly. You have the obligation to the author of the book. And but the times were very violent during this book, and so if you represent it honestly, it may have been made with a lot of heart and soul, but it may have been that the studios at that moment weren't looking for that. So sometimes you start a movie 3 years before and you're guesstimating that it will come out 3 years later at a time that is still conducive to that subject matter. And sometimes you have to dial it up or dial it down a bit. And sometimes you get it wrong.
But still trying to remain true to the essence of the story that it's based on.
The story, the vision of the director. This had Jamie Foxx, it had Nikolai Costas-Balder, a new ingenue actress who did great, Micah Monroe. And Cassavetes was great. Kenji, the DP, was fantastic. We shot in Mexico during COVID, during flu season, during cartel wars, during floods.
Wow.
And it was quite challenging. Would that movie been made by a studio? I don't think so.
Absolutely. Because if I remember correctly, God is a Bullet, that was, the studios had shut it down because they were saying it was just too violent for TV.
They didn't shut it down, but they had turned it down.
They turned it down, right. Wow.
And so now, what do you look for? What do you look for in a movie now? What do you think the public wants? What do you want? Do those two things connect? Are you looking for the same things that the public is looking for? What is the next phase of film, especially theatrical film, things that people will go out and see in a theater?
Well, I think it always starts with a great story and great characters. I mean, what made the first 3 Star Wars great is you liked the characters.
Right.
They were fun. Harrison Ford was a fun guy. And you wanted to go on the adventure with them. And I think that's always key. You want to cast people that women can fall in love with or guys want to be like. That's your typical Hollywood star. And you could see that persona in Tom Cruise, in Stallone, in a number of the major talents, Brad Pitt,
Johnny Depp,
Clooney, yeah.
the list goes on.
Yeah. And so I think that's key. But I think subject matters that are fun. Fish out of water. What happens when a white kid is brought home by his Latin girlfriend to meet her Mexican father and he doesn't like her? Yeah.
Why do you keep going back to Gringo? You're still promoting Gringo. Oh, you're doing a good job.
Well, I mean, I love Lord of War. We financed
exactly.
Lord of War with Nick Cage, which everybody at the time told Nick not to do. But Nick, as an artist and as someone who loved that character, and he chooses his movies based on the character, did a script by Andrew Nicole, who directed, and Philippe Rousselet, who's a great French producer. And so that movie was a lot of fun. It was shot in 4 countries, shot all over the world. It was an incredible experience, and you learned about a real character, which it was based on loosely, Victor Bout, who was just released in a hostage trade with Russia, notorious arms dealer.
Crazy.
Or Air Force One with Harrison Ford, where a group of terrorists take over a...
That was not based on a true story.
No.
I do have a question, though, when you're talking about Nick Cage. How important is that to you right now, that you have a well-known star connected to whatever you're doing?
I usually, in 99.9 cases, need a well-known star and one well-known song in every movie. I don't want to make a movie without it.
And what is the foreign marketplace like right now for you? Are you looking at India, China? Where do you look to make money?
I let the foreign salespeople handle that. I make certain deals with some of the bigger territories, either UK, France, Germany, depending on the movie. And then the rest of the world is sold by a sales agent. And they seem to know if they buy one of our movies what they're getting, you know. We've worked recently a lot with XYZ, where we did Prisoners of the Ghostland, another Nick Cage movie that was in Sundance by a Japanese director, Sion Sono, and we shot in Japan. Or Cutthroat City, which we shot in Louisiana with Wu-Tang founding member RZA. And Bobby's a fantastic guy. And so that was a challenging movie because of the nature of the hardships after Katrina wiped out the Ninth Ward.
Yeah.
And you had kids trying to get jobs that couldn't get jobs. So one was a trumpet player, one was a graphic artist that did comic books, and they had to turn to a life of crime to support themselves because trumpet playing and comic graphic novels were not selling. And so this is a tale of these kids, and it's a true story based on fictional characters that took place in Louisiana at the time. Terrence Howard, Wesley Snipes, T.I., Shameik Moore. I mean, these are all fantastic actors. And we were eventually joined by Ethan Hawke, who is one of the best actors I've ever worked with. He worked so hard and did such a great job, inspired by RZA.
Wow.
And so...
And you mentioned so many classical movies. You mentioned so many hits. I mean, things that people still talk about today. You mentioned Underworld, Reservoir Dogs, God is a Bullet. What has been your most memorable experience, whether it was fun, crazy, wild, just outright unexpected experience that you've ever had working on a film?
Well, it was fun working with Mel Brooks. We financed a movie called Robin Hood Men in Tights, which was one of the first movies my kids watched. Gabriella, you used to like Robin Hood Men in Tights, right?
I loved it.
Yeah. So Gabriella and Max would watch Robin Hood Men in Tights. And then Gabriella said to me one day, well, how come you never make any movies that I can watch? Because some of them are very tough and
Sure.
have violence. I said, well, who do you want me to make a movie with? She says, Hilary Duff. So we ended
Good
up
choice.
making a movie called Material Girls.
That's oddly one that I did not see.
Yeah, well,
It wasn't meant for
it's
me.
Hilary Duff, her sister, Angelica Houston.
Yeah.
Martha Coolidge directed, and it made Gabriella happy.
Well, there you go. That's enough. I was going to ask you how much now, I think Blackout, which was very successful on Netflix, you were saying, how much did Netflix have to do with in terms of telling you what that film was going to look like or edits that they wanted? How much is the Amazon Studios, the Netflix, now controlling what you see or making suggestions about what?
Interesting you should ask that. So they just released their numbers, Netflix. Natalie, do you have those numbers?
What numbers?
The Netflix numbers of our last couple movies. You know how we...
I guess we're going to do some editing of this.
I know we're keeping all of this
okay,
because
good
we
enough,
got to
fair
see
enough.
all the behind the scenes.
Yeah, but this is the team.
No,
you know?
no, I'm
Yeah.
joking.
This is, you know, the Wizard of Oz has a whole team.
Yeah.
Wait, who's
The lion.
Who's the wizard in this?
The lion is over there. The Tin Man's over there. The Tin Man.
And
Oh,
the
the
Tin
Tin
Man.
Man,
I
yes,
love
I
that.
have
I love that. I'm the courageous lion, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. 'cause
Can't you
he's looking
see?
Courage, but you have it,
I have it.
and I have
already.
no heart. You are correct.
And then
about
this
that.
is Oz. This is the Oz.
Yeah, that's true.
right
The
here.
man behind the curtain.
Oz, A-H-H-S.
Go back though to how Netflix and Amazon now have a lot of say in the way films are edited or put together.
Oh, on Blackout, we made a movie with Josh Duhamel, Abby Cornish, and Nick Nolte. And so Sam Macaroni was the director. We shot it in Mexico during COVID, where you couldn't go outside for some reason. So we had to
For some
shoot
reason.
in like 5 different floors of this hotel in Mexico. And so we cut the movie, and Netflix sees a sizzle and buys it. And then the movie has a little bit more humor in it. Josh likes to joke around, and so does the director. But the notes we got from Netflix, which was about 4 pages, detailed changes they wanted to the score, the cut, the humor, the tone, the color. And so it was the first time I had gotten notes from Netflix, and they were very good, actually. And we ended up cutting to those notes, and Netflix knows what they're doing. The film worked out great on Netflix.
Have you ever had the reverse of that, where it turned out not to be as good, where someone got involved in a project where they, in terms of the way you found it afterwards, that it didn't work?
The studio guys and ladies are always brilliant.
Oh,
I have no complaints.
why do I think you don't always believe
I
that?
know, saying that just for the camera.
I can't say that the directors feel that.
Right.
Sure.
The directors have a vision, and sometimes it doesn't match the studio's vision. And that's an artist's prerogative. However, financiers and producers have to make the people that are paying for the product happy. That's part of our job, right?
And there's always a question of, does life imitate art or does art imitate life? And then there's also this, notion or this idea or belief out there that, the studios, Disney, all the different studios are kind of changing the way that they produce shows and what have you, because they're trying to get a certain belief system out there, if you will. Do you think that for example, you mentioned the feedback that Netflix provided, do you think that these are things that the studio is doing because they feel they know what the audiences want, or is it more so this is what we want the audience to feel from what we're putting out there?
Sometimes a studio, which is a huge conglomerate of assets, Coca-Cola's own studios, Paramount was owned by Viacom, Disney owned ABC. I mean, you've had Amazon now owns MGM. So sometimes the studios get slack from Congress. When we made Lord of War, we had an offer for domestic from a studio for $5 million for US, but they wanted us to kill off Nick Cage's character at the end, who is an arms dealer, because they wanted to show violence doesn't pay. But the movie was about how governments exploit arms dealers to finance various proxy countries that are involved in wars.
Oh, that's interesting.
So essentially, the generals, the government, end up protecting these guys because they finance different wars around the world, such as, North Korea could be a proxy for China, or Iran is really the proxy for Hezbollah and Hamas. And so China has other areas that it's operating in Africa, and the Wagner group that Putin uses is its proxy to deliver its message and the violence that comes with that message in different countries. So these guys don't get killed. They're there to carry out a bigger goal of a country or a group of countries. So we could not agree to kill Nick Cage because that was not the story. And so we passed on that and made the movie without a distributor, and eventually it was sold to Lionsgate for $10 million, the way we originally intended it and the way it is, where Nick Cage carries on and continues his job. And
But that used to be a rule in Hollywood that you could never show a criminal getting away with it. In the 30s and 40s, that was always the thing, that you'd have to have James Cagney would die at the end of the film because you wanted to show that crime doesn't pay. So that did work at one point in time, but I'm surprised that a studio today would, or anybody looking to purchase a film, would say you have to make that change.
Interesting to see kind of the evolution of filmmaking, and also all the behind the scenes that people, just the audiences
That doesn't
they
know
don't
what's
know.
going on. Yeah, Michael, I was going to ask that. I don't think I've ever asked you about that. When you were growing up and you were a kid, were there any film stars or filmmakers that you really loved? What would you name as your 3 favorite films of all time?
the first major film I remember watching was The Sting.
Yes.
With Paul Newman and Robert
A
Redford.
truly great a movie you should see because it still holds up. It's just it's movie making at its finest.
And then the other one was Cast a Giant Shadow with Kirk Douglas.
That's odd. I know the film, but I've never seen it before. I'll have to see that.
And Exodus was
It's
another one.
It's a great film, yeah.
And also The Godfather, also a wonderful movie. Goodfellas.
Goodfellas is one of my top 5
That
of all
is a
time.
great film.
Scarface with Al
Yes.
Pacino.
Now you've gone too far, but all right.
No, 100%. I'm still with you.
You know what? That's one of the things with Patriot, though, that I really think that I hope that people that watch this will go back and look at the type of films that you're doing. You're really varying the types of film. You're not doing superhero films, but you're doing action films. You're doing more thoughtful films. You're doing comedies. I think that's interesting, and I see that in the type of movies that you enjoy. You have a very varied interest in different types of films.
And none of it is cookie cutter, and you're even like, you'll go down diving deep into the depths of the ocean, uncovering sunken ships to, the Gringo Who Stole Christmas. I mean, it's such an incredible broad variety.
Yeah, tell us about a couple things that are coming up that you're excited about.
Well, we have completed a documentary on shipwrecks in the Baltic Sea. And we have 3 hours of the most amazing underwater footage you've ever seen. It is literally 3 film cameras underwater at 82 meters, which is 250 feet, which requires 5 different tanks, 3 different kinds of air, helium, nitrogen, and oxygen. And you have to be an experienced diver. You can't just, put your swimsuit in and jump.
Wow.
And so that's super interesting. And we're out to Academy Award winning actor to narrate that movie. And we're hoping to get him, fingers crossed. And then we have another movie. It's like a Mean Girls updated, modernized, and changed. And so, but I've never actually made a movie like that before. So the ladies in the company, Grace, Natalie, Caitlin, Gabriella, led the charge on that. And I hope it works out.
I think it will.
I know it will. It definitely will.
But it doesn't, I kept telling the director I'd like him to kill somebody, but...
Oh, good. You
He
needed a
can't
car
not-
chase or whatever, I understand.
But he refused. But that's being completed. It's in post. And so we'll see that in the first quarter next year. And you'll take a look at it and tell me what you think.
I'm sure
Being a teenager at heart.
Without a doubt. I've
Figuring out
certainly
the
been called
meaning.
immature, so that's... One of the other things we wanted to ask you about was somewhat selfish, I guess. We wanted to ask you about PR and publicity, and having us on board as part of your team. I like to think of myself as part of your team.
You are.
And I wanted to ask, what have you gotten from Lobeline? What do you feel about what it's brought to your company and how it's helped you, and how any movie company today needs, any movie coming out needs PR?
It's a good question, and it's an science that is imprecise to somebody who makes a product. I mean, it's one thing to finance it, cast it, edit it, film it, but how to market it is another science in itself, and public relations is part of that. And
it's changed from when you started. I mean, this is a different process today than it was 25 years ago.
well, when I started, a reporter would come, we would sit together, he'd interview me, he'd write up an article, it'd come out 3-4 weeks later in Variety or Hollywood Reporter, and that's called publicity. Unless you were notorious, and then you got on page 6 of the New York Post, or another section of the paper that is even more notorious. But now it's very sophisticated between social media, Instagram, Deadline, influencers. I mean, this movie, How the Gringo Stole Christmas, we hired these guys called the Vato Brothers, one of which has 20 million followers. I literally think he got all 20 million of his followers to go to the movie. And as a result, we're starting to write another movie that will have the Vato Brothers. And exceptional comedians, actors, and personalities.
Now back to my original question: how have we helped you at Lobeline?
Enough about you.
No, it's, in all seriousness, I think that this is one of the things when I first met you. You're such a great person and a personality, and I wanted to get you out there. And I wonder what that process has been like for you. I know what it's been like for me. It's first of all been introducing you to the film community and to a lot of people that maybe had never talked to you before. What has that process been like for you? Have you enjoyed it? Do you think it's been helpful? Do you like seeing those stories? Do you like being on the podcast that we've done? Let me know.
How much I love you.
He's like, let me know how much you love me.
Let me say this. As someone who finances and produces, we usually put our product in front. We don't necessarily get any credit. We get all the problems. And so we're happy if our director, our stars, and our movie does well. And so for me, it's been an experience in sharing with new generations how to accomplish this and how to inspire them to make movies. And without you using the new podcast, you know, because it's relatively new podcast. And so new generations are learning through history through Instagram, which I don't know how far back in history they can go. But Lobeline has been instrumental in getting the word out of independent filmmaking, independent finance, how to find projects that are worthy, and how to put together very complicated pieces through putting me with different critics and movie people and radio personalities that are now doing podcasts. And so it's been a great opportunity for me to share with people I would never speak to how we do it. And now we're even getting calls from banks in New York saying, would you come and teach us how you do this? Or how can we finance you in doing what I heard on your podcast? And that's wouldn't have happened without you and Solange and the Lobeline people.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to take you out there and have, especially people that are really big movie fans, but maybe didn't know Patriot Pictures, maybe didn't know you, and then I've had so many of them come back. Michael's so funny. Michael's so insightful. We'd like to speak to Michael. In fact, you're doing a podcast next week, I believe. That's one that interviewed you maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, and they'd had such a good time with you. They wanted you back with Natalie, I believe. So we're doing things.
You hear that, Natalie?
Get ready.
But
You can't say no to that one.
But that's what's been really, really fun.
Natalie's going to go to Southeast Asia before.
I know. She's taking a tour out there. So
she's a definite around the world in 80 days kind of gal.
I'm doing it by balloon. So anyway, yeah, it's been really, really fun to introduce you to all those people. I know I said this to you when we first met, was I really wanted to get you in front of some of these people that love film, that love your films, and do have questions about how you get things made. They really want to know this stuff. So you're so insightful in that way. So it's been a pleasure.
It's so nice of you to say that about me, but I must say that I don't do it myself. This company holds me up. And that starts with Natalie, Caitlin, Gabriella, Grace. These people are the backbone, the vertebrae of this company. And my best friend and financier, Mark Rowan, who has been in the press recently regarding University of Pennsylvania and the current break-in calls for genocide and anti-Semitism. He has single-handedly been trying to make things fair as a private equity guy and a man that manages over $500 billion of private equity. So I have to give all the credit to Mark Rowan, who I love dearly and who we met 42 years ago at the University of Pennsylvania. So, team effort.
You have one of the best teams around, and I had told Solange this. I came to your house for Thanksgiving, and I always judge somebody by the people that are around them, their friends, their family, and all that. There was the group that you had there for Thanksgiving, some of the most wonderful people I met, some of the friendliest people I've ever met. So that's that reflects kindly on you, too.
And the team helped cook.
Yes, they did.
Caitlin, Gabriella, Natalie in arrangements. Only Grace was sick and wasn't able to cook, but last minute made one of her Filipino dishes that was fantastic. I don't know how she pulled it off, but I feel blessed to have them. I feel blessed to have the opportunity to make movies and finance movies. And I'm fortunate to have you and Lobeline supporting our efforts. And we appreciate everything that you do. And you do it in such a classy and kind way. And even when things come up the last minute, you're there to support us. So thank you. Don't we say thank you, Lobeline? Can we have it on 1, 2, 3? Thank you, Lobeline.
All right. Thank you, Patriot Pictures. You make it
Thank
easy.
you for giving us your time.
Yes, you make it so easy, Mike.
Lobeline, Lobeline, Lobeline.
Not too far. All right.